Welcome everyone for today's conference, The Future of Work in Asia. I'm Ravindra, founder and CEO of the Asian Network, and we are happy to organize this event in partnership with Area ESI Knowledge Lab. Before we dive into our session, Enhancing Innovation in Rural Areas, let me introduce you to Anne Lochoff for the opening remarks. Prior to joining CEL, Singapore Agri-Food Innovation Lab at Nanyang Technological University, Anne was a Senior Advisor Partnership at the United Nations Development Programme's Global Center for Technology, Innovation and Sustainable Development in Singapore. Anne is one of 9 women rated as the top global influencers of tech innovation in cities, featured in Inc.com in 2016. Welcome, Anne. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And firstly, I do want to thank the organizers, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, and of course the Asian Network for organizing such a relevant event and inviting me to speak. I wanted to share my personal work story to help frame the motivations for my talk today. I grew up as a farmer's daughter in South Africa. Mom and Dad ran the 2 farms. One was located about an hour's drive outside of a large city growing maize. And to feed the chicken on the farms, we also had a farm located in the city. We stayed in the city and Dad commuted back and forth from the farm. And to be honest, at that stage, I didn't see a path to following in my mom and dad's footsteps at the time, and opted to study architecture. And with a foundation in design thinking, my career took me to New Zealand for 5 years and Singapore for 15 years, covering many sectors, growing my skills in strategy, digital, and innovation along the way. But the piece I want to share with you is that many years later, I'm living in a large global city, influencing innovation solutions for agri-food. So the cycle has really come all the way around, and that's part of what I want to share with you today. The OECD policy statement on enhancing rural innovation highlights the importance of the digital dimension and states that innovation will be critical for the future competitiveness and sustainability of rural economies. The piece I wanted to focus on was, they say improved connectivity between cities and rural regions will generate mutual benefits. So that's the OECD. So how does that sort of apply to Asia? And what I want to focus on is understanding this flow of innovation between cities and rural areas in our discussion today. And I really want to spark some innovative questions in this area, because we really want cities to look at rural areas and realize that they're a source of innovation. It's also fitting that WIPO will be releasing its annual Global Innovation Index today. Its pre-released report on science and technology clusters, the report represents the geographical areas with the highest density of innovators and scientific authors, reveals that 4 out of the 5 top clusters are in Asia: Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Korea. There is an important relationship between rural natural resources and innovation. This has been enhanced by the growing strategic importance of sustainable technologies that rely on rural resources, such as crop-based energy, wind, and wave power. Even in traditional rural industries, such as agriculture and food, a growing urban demand for quality food is a major source of innovation. Here we find organic farming, the production of high-quality products, and regional specialities like on-farm processing and marketing, as well as the creation of short new supply chains, all driving new waves of innovation. Rural innovations are often driven by universal basic needs. Many rural innovations have their origins in basic needs, such as access to critical public services, education, health, and social services, to a minimum level of commercial services such as post offices, banks, and retail. In this regard, rural areas have benefited from distance learning of the internet and the provision of online banking, and e-government services created to lessen the barriers of distance. The question of enhancing innovation will bring us to the question of funding and finance. And with that in mind, I wanted to share a mega trend which enables connectivity between cities and rural areas to redefine investment flows. This megatrend is called spatial finance. Spatial finance is the integration of geospatial data and analysis into financial theory and practice. Earth observation and remote sensing combined with machine learning have the potential to transform the availability of information in our financial system. Why is this relevant? Next generation climate and environmental analytics for geospatial and asset level insights allow for a more fundamental finance. Geospatial assessment of risks, opportunities, and impacts ranging from natural catastrophe modeling, commodity trading intelligence, physical climate and financial risk analysis, biodiversity risk, and impact assessment. The downside, and this is where I want to sort of make a point, is many spatial finance applications today remain largely unexploited through lack of awareness and analytical skills. And this is where the opportunity lies for pioneering data scientists to innovate investment thinking and workflows, especially in the context of rural areas. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion today because you're going to get more definitions of rural innovation, examples of implementation, and what it really needs to thrive. So I welcome the discussion for today. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Anne, for sharing those insights for your opening remarks, which I'm sure will inspire our participants today. I'm very happy now to introduce you to our three distinguished guest speakers. First, we have Chimka Munkhbayar, based in Mongolia. Chimka is a co-founder of Agrolly, a farming app that aims to help rural farmers in emerging markets fight against climate change. She's also working to launch the Agrolly Mongolia app to solve socio-economic issues in rural Mongolia with a combination of agriculture and entrepreneurship. Welcome, Chimka. Then we have Diane Goff. For the last 9 years, Diane has held several positions in sustainable development at Schneider Electric. Since 2019, she is the global manager of the Youth Education and Entrepreneurship CSR program for the group, strengthening technical and vocational education, supporting the integration of women in the energy field, and encouraging innovation. She's based in Hanoi, Vietnam, and oversees operations in several also countries in Asia. Welcome, Diane. Our last speaker is Saran Song, CEO of the Amru Rice, who has grown its rice export over 450,000 tons from 2011 to 2020. He's made a niche for the Cambodia rice and the key success of inclusive business model, working with over 100 cooperatives with over 10,000 farmers' families. He was awarded the McKinsey Golden Medal Best Entrepreneur 2006, the Takeda Young Entrepreneurship Award 2015, and the winner of the Country Award in 2018, ASEAN Agro Award Young Entrepreneur Award. Welcome, Saran.
Thank you. Welcome and good afternoon to all participants.
So before I start the first question, a gentle reminder for all participants who might have some questions for our guest speakers, please feel free to write it in the chat box and we will answer you later during our Q&A sessions. Let me start now with these first questions. What are the primary focuses or priorities that we should consider in rural innovation? Some examples are managing natural environments, building instruments or institutions for economic development, among others. So perhaps I will start with Diane, with your experience with Schneider Electric Corporate. Maybe you might bring your insight.
Thank you, Ravindra, and thank you for having me here today. I'm very glad to participate, and hello to everyone. So as you can understand, maybe today I will talk more about the energy world perspective, since I work in the energy company for the last 10 years. And I think one first very important point in my work is when we talk about rural area, but also peri-urban areas, is always to really consider the local perspective and have a very good understanding of needs and priority. And if I can take a very simple example, I've worked a very long time for access to energy related question or access to reliable and safe energy. And when we built the team at Schneider Electric, the first thing that was really important is that the R&D would be based in India and led by people that actually lived in rural areas without access to electricity, because they would be able to say, okay, what are the priorities for rural areas from our experience? And I think the local understanding is really the first key. And then if we talk about innovation, I would say that for us, what is really important is working on the ecosystem for innovation. And maybe there are few layers on the ecosystem. The first one, of course, that is at the core of my experience is more about education and skills. I think it's really the fundamentals for innovation, technical, but also general skills. And also like really encouraging the youth to take part in social and energy challenges in general, and starting at a very early age, thinking about the energy challenges and trying to be bold and innovate. So I think education is really a fundamental, and especially technical and vocational education. If we look at the industry, that very often that doesn't capitalize many investment, nevertheless is very essential. Then the second point I would say that we have realized when we talk about innovation, entrepreneurship, and we look at entrepreneurs, many people are talking about doing entrepreneurship training, for example, innovation training. The reality is that innovation is difficult and it's a long-term process, and you need long-term support. So you need to build an ecosystem with public organization, NGOs, private partners to really support in the long term innovators and not just on a short period of time. And for example, I know that in Vietnam, we realized that we wanted to support people that innovate in the energy field. And they say, what we need is a space to come and have access to tools and experts to actually see what is feasible in terms of technologies. The third point that I would say that is very important is about funding and access to funding. And I know Anne mentioned it. And when we say funding, it's not very large amount always. Sometimes it's very small, actually, and sometimes it's higher. But I think, for example, at Schneider, we have investment funds that try to focus on local entrepreneurs and not just international companies that bring innovation, or program through philanthropy to support, for example, low-tech development that is very essential and critical in countries. And the last point that I would mention in this ecosystem is, of course, about public services. I truly believe that policies are necessary and important for the development of rural areas and to build the right institutions, and of course to partnership between NGOs, public organization, private companies, philanthropy, because partnership are key. We are all citizens of this planet, so we need to work together, and it's the case also in rural innovation. And I would say that in this four area, what is also important is always to have the focus on women integration. And from experience, if I look at the energy value chain, women are not really represented at any stage of this value chain. And if we look at rural areas, and for example, at consumers, usually women are the first one actually knowing and understanding the need of the household in terms of energy. So it's very important also to have a priority on making sure women are going to be part at every stage of this process of innovation. So this would be my remark from the energy perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. I think, it's good that you mentioned that indeed we need to have a supportive ecosystem, as you mentioned, with those key components, also prevailing gender equality, technological innovations, and also a pool of talents, and absolutely right with the financial support and investment. So now let me ask the same question to Saran, looking at his also a kind of challenging market, which is Cambodia. So Saran, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yes, thank you, Ravindra. It's a very good question. I think in terms of Cambodia context, we maybe have a difference from another Asian country, because we have a lot of smallholder farmers that living in rural province, mainly focusing on their rice farming and followed by another crops. So I would say the primary focus for our rural farmer, we had to look on three contexts. One, social protection. Second, economic. Third, environmental protections. And in this regard, I think we have to do some, important steps. One step we do is digitalization in terms of agriculture, because a lot of number, we talk about sustainability. Most farmers here are women, and they are more than 50 years old. Most of kids going to work in the government or in other countries. So we left our with more than 60% doing the job that left behind. So innovation is a must to do, because they are old, they cannot do anything. We need to do mechanizing, and thanks that we have more than 99% in Cambodia do mechanic. So they have all plowing, drought, all things are do by mechanic. Number three, I think we have to do inclusive business model, because our business model for rural farmer may be different from the context of the large farm business. We have a lot of issues with the quality, standard, technical support that need to be transformed and develop the model for the smaller farmer. Number three, I think, as Diane already mentioned, we have fintech issues, because fintech is one of the most innovative to help them live from the literacy, financial literacy. So if we have developed a good fintech that benefit those farmers, I think it's gonna be a lot of changing in the next 5 or 10 years in rural area. And number four, I would say we had to prepare for the next crisis, because even you do anything but look to have with a lot of uncertainty, we had to be prepared. One thing that we had to prepare is inflation, and of course inflation would be not short, it's gonna be more longer than what we expected. So we have to use the innovation, what thing to have those area for farmer. So we put focus on how to address inflation. We have a lot of high cost of fertilizers. We have more than triple fertilizer costs. We are having costs, let's say $400 per ton or $500 per ton. Now we pay almost $2,000 per ton on fertilizers. We have to look on how we can resolve the supply chain issues. So with technology or innovation, connectivity, we need to move fast, because I would say a key challenging, it would make food more expensive. The food more high, not sign of going down, because of the inflation, raw material input, disruption, supply chain, logistics. It would make things harder for the farmer, and they must get something proper for their living. They need to live too. So there's a lot of things we need to be prepared. And the next one is about, in geopolitics, how we can live in the way more harmony and solidation and let's say integration, deglobalization. We need to open the market and globalization. We don't want close the doors. So we need to open up, because smallholder farmer would might suffer from the geopolitics and mainly competition and also protectionism that are main focus primary. I believe this is very important that we need to put in place in a contingency plan, and also using technology innovation to address these issues as soon as possible. Yes, thank you, Ravindra, is my key input.
Yes, thanks, Saran, to really underlining the strengths, opportunities such as, like you said, digitalizations, innovation and skills, having an inclusive business model, but at the same time, we need, like you said, also to anticipate, to mitigate the risk, external risk, economical, such as inflations, like you said, geopolitical tensions, but also environmental risk that we might, especially in Southeast Asia, mitigate. So thanks for that, Saran. Let me now ask to Chimka the same question, because I know Chimka has also working a lot on agri-fintech solutions, to help small farmers to access green financing and P2P lending opportunities. So what are your thoughts, Chimka, on your side?
Okay, thank you so much. I totally agree with what Saran and Diane also said. Like, it's very important to, for me, it's like I'm already working with farmers, and then now also building another fintech app to help those farmers. So I started working in this sector. It's pretty new. It's like I originally come from the family farmer in easternmost part of Mongolia, and then I after I did my MBA, I started digging around, like, if everything changed in the farming, but like nothing like that much changed. So I started tackling this problem and built the Agrolly farming app. And then we are already having like over 10,000 farming communities in Mongolia, in India, Taiwan, and Brazil. And in Mongolia, like, we are specifically focusing on 2,000 farmers right now. And when we started farming, like, we were trying to figure out, like, what is the priorities for those farmers, and then what is the, like, local needs, like, how can we help them, like improve their livelihood and facilitate the labor, etc. So we identified three main problems for farmers in rural areas, basically in Asia and all over the world. It's like access to empowerment, the access to information, access to finance, and access to market. So we started with the very basic one. Like, we started building this app to notify, like, related market information to market and weather forecast information to rural areas, and it's totally uncommercialized free app. And later, the next thing we wanted to know is, like, if the farmers are sustainable, if they know, if they're aware how they're using the natural resource. And then, unfortunately, majority of them, they have no awareness. So to encourage them awareness, you need a certain leverage to push them into more sustainable practice. So we found it more like a green financing, especially the ESG-linked loans. If you introduce, it's a very new concept that the more sustainable you become, like, the less interest loan you are exposed to. I think a lot of fintech and a lot of financial services now, like, instead of just giving loan just like for free, I think for just like as a like normal loan, I think we have to encourage all those farmers in rural areas to become more sustainable. That's how we can just provide more green financing. And then the most important thing is, like, when I was working in farming, it's very important to map out, like, what are the other projects going, like, what is government agenda, like, what is the private sector agenda. I think because at the end of the day, we're trying to tackle the very same problem, but like instead of just working together, I think we're just trying to do it on our own way. But like, I think if you know, like, the big agenda, the big picture, I think you don't have to repeat the job that other people are trying to do, but instead, like, you tackle the other problems that nobody is touching. I think that's my point. Thank you.
Thanks, Chimka, for sharing with us your different initiatives, but also for bringing, I think, the importance of green financing, which is a great point. So let me follow up with that second questions for all of you, because we are speaking now a lot with the role of technology. So what impact does technology have on rural people and work? perhaps some example within your respective activity and business. I know that it helped to connect the unconnected, but also with automations and also reduce the cost of trade and new market opportunities. So let me follow this question with Chimka. How does it help on your within your industry and within your market?
I think for farmers, as I said, like they don't have access to information. Like only platform they can just get more access is like TV stations and probably Facebook in many countries. Because I guess like the government, it's always a little hard for government to digitize ahead of everyone because they need private sector help, they need NGOs support also. The thing is like, for example, for farmers, like they want to access like what is going on in my market. Like if I have my collection this fall, like where am I going to sell my produce? Like what is the price? Or else like what's going to happen to my land for the next 5 years? Those kind of information they want to know. And then that's how they can plan and how they can just play an important part of the value chain. So I think just like to do that, we need a lot of training. For example, for us, it was very hard because in India, for example, some farmers that they cannot even use their mobile phone. But in Mongolia, it's like, for example, it's a little different story. For farmers, they all have Facebook. They do like mobile banking, etc. So sometimes it depends on what countries we're talking about, and then their digital literacy is like totally different level. That's how I feel. And in Mongolia, what I felt, for example, is like we need a focal point. We need like someone who can teach, like those kind of platforms exist, and then that's how you can utilize them. So we did a lot of video trainings. We did like, oh my God, over 2,000 direct calls with 16,000 farmers. And then we did a lot of TV station programs. And then I think just like farmers are very much willing to learn a lot because those kind of solutions are really lacking in the developing countries, I think.
Thank you, Chimka. How about you, Saran? Maybe some example in your respective business?
Yeah, Ravindra, good question too. So in my particular, I think the impact from the innovation from our technology or semi in terms of production or processing and finished product, I believe a lot of efficiency. In terms of efficiency, we have seen. I've been mainly put robotics machine in machine learning. A lot of saving in for example, prediction the climate change in the farm, using the more diligent on crops that we need to control, especially tolerant crops. And number two, I think it also be a trust between producers and me, because we are the processors. So we do need see that a lot of trust from them, because we are using technology and more transparency and open, everyone on the same page. Number three, I also learn and gain a lot from the consumer perspective, because the consumer they of concern about the traceability, where the food from, where they eat, whether safe or not. So with this, immediately we see more impact from the consumer confidence to buy food, and they can pay more actually. So we have more in profitability from the technology and innovation. And last but not least is come up with the cost, because we have a lot of good things, but of course you need a lot of investment and skilled workers, skilled staff to ensure they are able to control, to manage, and to work on time. That's one thing that we have to look in Cambodia context. We need a lot of university students to learn about this technology, robotic, machine learning. We still, underdeveloped, but of course we are running, behind another Asian country, but we're going step by step. And my last point now, I do my own pilot. We do block rice, where we do the blockchain, farmer connected to the market in the chain. where we have started up with 50 farmers in the pilot, and now we scale up 500 farmers in the chain. So it showed that it's very efficiency and very successful to support those farmers engage in social environment, market access, globalizing, make them more socialized. They are not only farmers, now become more learning directly with the consumer lifestyle and what they need, what food they want. So it's another new thing we are touching like 2-3 years now, and support from the Oxfam NGO partner and also technology company funded by the Dutch government. It would be a lot of impact in Europe, to ensure the safe food safety and transparency. Yeah, so I just share. Thank you, Ravindra. That's my comment. Yeah.
Thanks, Saran, for those. I think you mentioned that AI technology, you're right, can predict some weather forecasts, but also crops. But you mentioned something very important is the trust and the ethics behind technology. I think that we must consider within the next decade for sure. So how about you, Diane, for Vietnam and with your respective company, Schneider Electrics, what the benefit of technical innovation?
Of course, I'm fully aligned with what Chimka and Saran said, and I would just complete that actually. But first, I think like everyone and everywhere should be able to take part and benefit from the tech economy and digitization in general. Digitization is not like for urban areas only, it's for everyone, and we have to see it as a right at some point, because as Saran said, there are many technologies that can disrupt many sectors differently from urban perspective or rural areas. And Saran, you mentioned blockchain. If we look at blockchain, there are many uses that could happen in rural areas in terms of having a place to keep administrative documents safely, for example, but many other ways that can be used in rural areas and that would advance, the development, the economic and social development. So it's very important to always keep both perspectives in mind with the local reality. And I think if we look at the energy world, so of course the energy world is completely transformed with digitization, and of course its energy brings to rural areas, but everywhere in general, improved the standard of living, actually. Of course, it's going to help the development of healthcare system. It's going to make also the rural areas more safer with the access to light. It's going to disrupt access to education. And I think we have seen it in general with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many students were out of school for a very long time. But thanks to digitization and connectivity, we could have kept many of them online. But for this, we need to bring technology everywhere. And if we look, for example, at education in the energy world, technical and vocational education, it's a lot of investment if you want to make it practical rather than theoretical. You need a lot of machine, as Saran was saying. You need a lot of practice for people. But if you look at digitization, for example, we are able, with augmented reality today, to develop, tools in order to start practicing online, actually, and learning the energy jobs. So definitely, long-distance learning is really helped by technology and by digitization. And it also makes it more interesting at the end of the day for students and for trainers. And what is very necessary in education is really to train also the trainers on those technology, because we want to make sure that they will be able to use them. And finally, in the energy world, I think definitely technology brings an increase of productivity for entrepreneurs and farmers. And we have said it previously. For example, the agro-industrial fishing is really, usually in South Asia in general, it's really the first place of income in rural areas. So we can bring, with energy and technology, more efficiency we can connect people to new markets. And for example, we develop a lot of solar pumping system because pumping system need a lot of energy, and we can develop irrigation for farmers through solar pumping system. And in many countries, solar energy is an unlimited resource for rural areas. So there are many applications that we can develop. And as I said also earlier, when we look at innovation technology, let's also think about really local innovation and low technology, because there are many, many low technology that exist around the world, everywhere, that can really respond to several challenges in an easy way. So we are trying to work actually with NGOs that really go from one city to another, from one countryside to another, to kind of discover this low technology. We help them prove their efficiency with our R&D department, and they then publish, those low technology online to be accessible for everyone. So we see like people inventing a local fridge, for example, which can change also for farmers their productivity. So there are many, I think, low technology that could or be developed worldwide and improve, quality of living, industry in general. But of course, we need also to look at them and make sure that we support their development.
Thanks, Diane, for those answers. I think that you bring that digitization should be an equal playground for both rural and urban areas, but also to bring, I think, the educational sector within the agricultural sector that are also connected in some way with the progress of technological innovation. So we'll have now our Q&A sessions. I think that we still have around 5 minutes to wrap up this session. So if you can be brief on those answer with that question, it will be great. So let me ask you. I think that the first questions you already answer very clearly. It was to really mention some key drivers of rural change, such as digital connectivity, shifting values, or decentralized energy system. I think that you bring some advantages about digitalization. So let me focus more on that second question. If you can mention perhaps keywords or few sentences about, for you, the future of work in agriculture, because this is the main topic of that online conference today. So in 3 keywords or 2 sentences, what will be the future of work in agricultural sectors? Perhaps I will start with Chimka.
I would say like AI and automation and digitization, those 3 things are going to play a lot of part. And then I guess like the labor is going to be facilitated, and then like we'll have the improved efficiency. That's my belief.
Excellent. Diane?
Yes, so I think, of course, like Chimka, I have to say digitization, because I believe it's going to transform the future of work. I would say also sustainability, and it's linked to what we said previously. And finally, I would mention again a partnership. I think Chimka mentioned it also. Let's not redo what has been done already. Let's work together. Let's create ecosystems. So I would say partnership.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Saran?
Yeah, because the lady already speak. Yeah, actually, I have a similar things that been already mentioned by our husband here. So just add more for the keyword is resilient. I think what we're going to do, see how to be resilient, because I would say another one is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. So we have to look on resources and environmental resources. So just add up that my real concern, because they have to be prepared. It's very important what's happened in the next 3-5 years with the situation, with the geopolitical issues, with inflation, and especially with the current Ukraine and I think with Russia. So that's there's a look on this to be resolved. Thank you.
Thanks, Saran. Perhaps I will also ask this question to Anne at the same time, who can provide the final words for this engaging conversation. So perhaps, Anne, you might reply to this answer and also providing a conclusion from this engaging conversations, Anne.
Yeah, so to my earlier talk, I think data scientists are going to be the future farmers. We are going to need to have the young generation become these digital farmers in order to ensure food security going forward. Saran mentioned that, the average age of our farmers in Cambodia is 50. Well, in the US, it's 60. So, it's just getting older, and we need to have a way of encouraging the youth back into looking at farming in new ways. And, digitalization does encourage that to happen. So I would say data scientists.
Excellent.
So to wrap up, I heard some really good, conversation here, and those priorities I wanted to sum up, and Diana, so true to my heart is multi-sector partnership at the heart and the foundation of finding solutions for how we connect cities to rural areas, because everybody really gets involved. I think this is so important for both innovation, but also, how we actually bring digitalization to both sides, and how both sides see each other as an advantage. But the other was really this concept of protecting, rural innovators, both economically, socially, seeing that there's inclusion, seeing that women are part of it. And this concept of protection is really a beautiful one. Thank you, Saran. That it makes governments think differently about their policies, I think, if you frame it in that way. But then, this word access also will inform policies in terms of the need for access, because you're in a rural area and connectivity is not necessarily there. How do we create, connectivity? I brought up geospatial data because it creates connectivity, because people who can't travel physically to a space can have impact and influence on a space that is much further away from them. So how do we rethink connectivity and actually being relevant and putting innovation in other areas when, it's so far away from where it's needed? And then I loved the sort of, conversation about digital and this idea that low tech is also relevant, because we do kind of love the shiny stuff, and yet we do need to celebrate low tech, and where, necessity is the mother of invention. And we kind of forget that old saying, because, there's just so many beautiful, shiny things that we want to include in our everyday life. But, the basics in terms of, keeping people informed and educated and, able to utilize all of these tools is just so important. I do, and again, I'm quite passionate about this, is the aspect of sustainability. Not only the sustainability of farming as a practice, but sustainability as a way of farming, and these practices that we put in place that will ensure food security, ensure longevity, ensure resilience, are fundamental. So this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Anne, our guest speaker, Chimka, Diane, and Saran, and all participants today for this, like Anne said, engaging and very interesting conversation. For those who can stay, we will have our session 2, Technology Disruption and the Future of Jobs, starting in 10 minutes. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Thank you so much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.